So I'd like to introduce you all to City Manager, Mr. David Calder. If you're a fire thing, I don't know, is it turned on? Do you have it turned on? Yes, okay. I have to sit down. I'm going to apologize to everybody. I'm in a tiny bit of pain this morning, but not from the waist down, but up here in my hand. I had carpal tunnel surgery a week ago, and it was a little bit of a pain in the neck. No, pain in the wrist, and I had a lot of difficulty the first few nights, but it started to get better. And I think the biggest part of the problem is it's my right hand, so it's my dominant hand. I reach for everything with my right hand, and sometimes you kind of forget what's going on. But David, thanks for coming this morning.
Thanks for having me. And, thank you for your members for coming out this morning.
Yeah, it's good. Well, they came up because of you, that. Not the
Well,
AGM.
As I said to somebody, I hope you didn't pay too much for your tickets. Expectations, right?
I was telling them at the table that I was thinking of times back when I was on council and on the way back from the cottage on Sunday. And I could remember walking into City Hall and going into the clerk's department, because the reality of it is that's kind of where the nuts and bolts happen, right? As a city councilor, you got to be in the clerk's department. That's who you want to work very closely with, because they'll develop your motions and they'll help you navigate through the bureaucracy. But I can remember walking in, and every time I went in, Jim Anderson was the city clerk at the time, I'd look into his office and he'd have a gold mail in front of his face and he'd be laying back in his chair. And I'd look, and David was actually working at his computer. So I think, okay, am I here for something serious? Because if I am, I'm going to go into David's office. If I'm here for some fun, I think I'm going to go interrupt Jim Anderson while he's reading the newspaper. But most often I would run into David's office because he would be kind of, I think, the architect behind a lot of the motions and give really keen balance. Do you miss that aspect of kind of the clerk's department? I know you do that now as a city manager, but really, you understand the clerk's department, how it works, and how it helps city councilors develop those motions and consider all sides. Do you miss that aspect of it?
A little bit. Careers progress, so that was part of my goal, was to progress into the city manager role someday. But I think the beauty of the clerk's office is that you get to work with the elected officials. You get to understand what is of importance to them, and you help craft that importance in order to get it before council. The other aspect of working in the clerk's office is it touches every part of the organization. And like many of you that are diverse businesses, we are a diverse business. We have a lot of different enterprises under our umbrella that most people and most companies would never do because they don't make money, right? So it is an interesting dynamic, but the clerk's office is definitely a great place for people that are interested in a municipal career to start and get that exposure of how an organization like a municipality functions. But no, I've really enjoyed my career progression and moving up to my current position as the city manager, particularly here in Cambridge, because as Greg mentioned, I live here in the region. I never moved out of the region. I commuted 2 hours a day for 6 years, which I can't believe I did, but those are the things you do to build careers. So, but this community was always home. And for 6 years, I can tell you, I felt a disconnect with this community because I was going in and out and not being able to invest my time and effort here in the community. So I'm glad to be back here in the role of city manager to serve you, and I am your public servant.
And one of the things that I said to city staff at that time was, what you see is exactly what you get. This guy is exactly how he is here, is how he's going to be with you on a one-on-one basis. He's genuine in his responses, but more importantly, he's genuine in his leadership. So David, you've spent your entire career in municipal government, the forefront of government. As you said, the moment we got up this morning, we started to use municipal services. The aspects of the role of municipalities are almost ridiculously wide. And, sadly, you're responsible for burying those who have passed on. And conversely, you're in charge of running programs that teach near newborns to swim. So everything actually literally in between. Given the vast array of responsibilities of a local municipal government and your expertise in this area, what does community mean to you?
I think, cliche is that it really is the people in the community and our interaction with those people. I think our purpose is we solve problems every day for people, whether it is, being able to provide some of those very sensitive services in a sensitive and caring way. And we have great staff that have the ability to work in some of those environments. I certainly couldn't do some of the jobs that our staff do, but it is that variety. But I think it's really serving our community. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago when I worked at the city of Waterloo, David Johnson was still president of the University of Waterloo at that time. And he always talked about barn raising and how this community is a barn raising community. And what I took from that was that we work together to solve problems and overcome issues. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of in this community is the collaboration that government has. So you spoke earlier about the region. And through the pandemic, I think this was really a strong sentiment, is that the 8 municipalities worked together, came together to find solutions to the various issues in response a lot to very short turnaround times due to the provincial government providing direction. But we worked together so that we could send consistent messaging to our residents so that we weren't all doing different things and confusing everybody. So that collaboration, I think, is really important. We continue to collaborate every day. So I give examples of things like we're building a new soccer facility, and we've collaborated with Conestoga College, who's made many investments in the community. But once again, they've stepped up to invest in a soccer field for us. We've had various other companies, do various things in collaboration with us. So I think it's a really important aspect. And I know one of the things in economic development was, during the pandemic, to help businesses, we've created a patio program so that people could sit outside, keep that social distancing. But we came up with innovative ways to do certain things so that business could continue to function. And even in our administration, we felt it was really important, and council did too, to continue with the approval process for planning and development aspects, so that we continue to issue permits, we continue to process subdivision development, we continue to get those to council for approval. The business of this community did not stop because of the city of Cambridge. We continue to serve a lot of people in this room and ensure those services are maintained. So I'm really proud of the work our staff did on that front, because as you can appreciate, early on in the pandemic, we didn't really understand what it was. And yet, my staff, our people, your service providers continued to work all the time. We never shut down. People worked in environments that they weren't even sure of what the dangers were, but we persevered. I can say, I know there's some firefighters in our room here. They couldn't stay home, work from home. They showed up for work every day, yes, and continued to serve this community. So it's things like that I think are really unique to this community particularly, is just how people step up and help each other.
Yeah, and I think it kind of translates to, there are many things that we just expect happen every day. So we get up in the morning, we expect that it's a snowfall. We expect that the roads are cleared, that, your salt trucks are out, or whatever has to happen has happened. And those things just carried on. And because they had to carry on in order to meet the needs of the community. So I think that was, I think certainly evident from my perspective. I was going into the office every single day, so I knew that the roads were clear, even at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning. I think what people might find interesting about our conversation and the questions might actually also translate into questions that I would probably ask a politician of some sort. But there are two sides to the answers in these cases. And while you get your marching orders from the council of the day, you're actually beholden to the provincial government, which is really interesting, and I'm not sure people really understand that. They're the ones that really enable municipalities to exist. We are creatures of the province. I'd probably say that at times a change in provincial government might be somewhat more challenging than a change even at the local level. Given the Ford government's mandate of building 1.5 million homes in the province of Ontario within a decade, how challenging is that going to be for municipal bureaucracy? Because this province has never built that many in that length of time. How is that going to be a challenge to the bureaucracy, to even the politicians?
Well, I think, we rise to the challenge for sure. And the elected officials will have to rise to that challenge because this community is going to change drastically in order to accommodate that type of growth. We're talking 19,000 homes that came to task to build in the next 10 years. We've averaged maybe 1,200 units a year, so now we're going to have to average at least 1,900. We had more greenfield back in the day. We don't have that much greenfield left. So what are we talking about? We're building up and not out, and I know Mr. Higgins is certainly aware of those challenges. Densities are going to increase, so neighborhoods are going to change. But this government is very quick to pass legislation. The consultation, I would argue, is somewhat limited. They do consult, but they have their own agenda. They listen, but you don't see a lot of change from that listening. They have their pathway forward, and I think our job is to help implement that. As Greg says, we are creatures of the province, meaning everything we do is based on legislation passed by the province, particularly the Municipal Act is what we call our Bible of how we function. So there's certain things we can and can't do. But this initiative by the province, I think, is pretty drastic, but it's also important in terms of being able to provide housing for growth. As Hardy Bromberg, our Director of Development Services, always said, we're looking at 70,000 people coming to Cambridge between now and I think it's 2050, Hardy. So that's massive growth. That's a third bigger than we already are. So or 50%, I should say. But it's that growth that we have to accommodate. It's about affordability, to be able to provide housing for those people that are coming to our community, which helps serve businesses here, provide labor, use our services. So that growth aspect to our infrastructure also gets impacted in terms of recreation facilities, any other amenities, parks, those sorts of things. So we will be under stress to be able to provide the infrastructure for that growth. Because one of the things that's very concerning is some of the development charges, which is the theory that growth pays for growth, will not be there. They're eliminating some development charges, which helps make some housing more affordable, but somebody has to pay those services. So what happens is it's going to end up going out on all of our taxes to help foster that growth. So that's one area that we're concerned about that the province isn't providing additional funding to. So we often go to the province looking for support financially. They've given it, particularly during the pandemic. They gave us quite a bit of money because of the changes in our revenues. But the province is very active in providing change. And as recently as Tuesday, the day after the municipal election. So we have to react quickly. We still don't have all the details. They're amending, I think it's about 12 different pieces of legislation all at once. So we're doing our homework and our research to fully understand what the impact on our community will be based on some of these changes. But it is necessary in order to have accommodation for people that are coming into our community. And when I talk our community, that's 70,000 for Cambridge, but as you know, in the region, we're growing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just challenging from your perspective and your staff and Hardy's perspective to be able to deal with that, and even the development industry for that matter. You also have to bring your council members up to speed on it as well. And that's a huge challenge. So you know, I always refer to municipality as being the monkey in the middle. And, you know, they're trying to balance off the sensibility and desires that we in the community and our members that we elect to council want, but also they're beholden to a provincial government that is saying, this is what you're going to do. So that balance is you know, it's a pretty thin wire sometimes.
Yeah, our elected officials, I think, you know, we have to really respect the job they're doing. It's a tough job trying to meet the demands of a community of our size of 140,000 people. So I like to say I have 140,000 customers that we hear from quite frequently. But it's the whole idea that, you know, the densities within this community are going to change, and that changes neighborhood. So it's an education to not only the newly elected officials, but our residents too. Neighborhoods that are traditionally, you know, single-family residential, but now there could be fourplexes put in those areas as well, or there could be high rises, particularly along certain corridors such as this proposed LRT. But high-rise development is coming. We have a lot of applications that are in currently, and some that have been approved that are adding a lot of units in terms of 20, 25-story buildings. And that's a change in our landscape here in Cambridge. But that's what has to happen if we're going to find anywhere close to 19,000 units in 10 years.
David, recently the Chamber presented a policy at the Canadian Chamber AGM at the policy conference, asking the federal government to initiate discussions with the province and municipalities to find a more suitable distribution of funds to solve communities' social issues, homelessness, addictions, mental health, not to mention all the infrastructure that goes behind 19,000 homes as well. These are all problems we in every community have, but we can't solve them on the backs of a property tax. It just can't happen. What challenges lie ahead if communities don't get support from other levels of government to tackle these big issues?
Well, I think the challenge is these issues will not get addressed. We've seen a proliferation of some of these concerns in terms of mental health and homelessness. And I can tell you, my eyes were really widened about 2 weeks ago, not no longer than that, I guess, when I was in Vancouver and see Hastings Street with the homelessness there. And it's just like a war zone, and it's sad. But we need to do something about it. The province needs to help us out, because you're right, we do not, as a municipality, you as taxpayers on property tax, we do not have the capacity to address these social issues. And it's not one solution, right? We have a lot of problems to solve, whether it's addiction, it's mental health, it's homelessness. They all kind of converge to create the perfect storm. We're partly in that position right now, and we're seeing that happen, and we're really concerned as a municipality. You know, winter's coming, it's struggling. People are struggling, and we know that as a municipality that not everybody is doing well right now. And I think, you know, we need the province to step up and invest more in particularly, I would argue, the mental health side of things, for one, followed by addiction, which is another one. But those are not traditionally roles that a municipality at the local level gets involved in. But because, you know, this is a caring community, we are involved. We are trying to find solutions. We are trying to help the region, who is more involved in some of these social services than we are. We try to assist in various ways and to support things such as, you know, housing. That's one area where we have had to step up, but we don't have the resources to do it, but we're doing what we can. Such as if we have vacant land, is there a possible use for that the region can put on to support housing? Because they're the ones that actually get the money from the province. So we need to support the region in order for them to keep lobbying the province and the federal government particularly to get those funds. But as you know, the province and the feds often are at loggerheads as to who's responsible for what. And, you know, we're, like you said, we're sort of the monkey in the middle, just watching both sides and saying, come on, let's get it done. And it's hard. But, you know, I'm really concerned about the rise in homelessness, and I'm hoping that through some of these new programs, if the government can do more than just say your target is 19,000 homes, but say, and here's some funding to provide some sort of level of supportive housing in our communities, I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, we use the comment made by Hazel McCallion many years ago saying, feds have all the money, the province has all the legislative authority, and the municipalities have all the problems. And so, you know, it's kind of like my dad used to always say, how come it is, you have all kinds of money when you're retired, your kids are moved out of the house and you don't need any money, but when you're raising them, you have no money. And, you know, it's almost kind of backwards, and I think, you know, really the federal government needs to sit down, certainly with the province, we believe that, and figure out a way to help municipalities, because we're actually, you know, the old comment, we're all in this together, is true, but apparently the federal, provincial government say, no, you're in it all on your own, so good luck with it, but I think we need to move on from that. I'm an early riser. We spoke a little bit about Hesper Road, or you actually talked about another 50% increase in people living in our community. You know, I get up early in the morning. Normally, when I'm leaving to work about 6:30 in the morning, it's pretty easy. I got about a 12-minute drive. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I got up and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to watch a little TV, a little news before I go in, and I left a little bit late, about 7:15. It took me 28 minutes on that 12 minute, normally that 12-minute drive took me 28 minutes. You know, are things like LRT going to relieve them? What are we going to do? You're not going to make Water Street in town. You're not going to put any roads in downtown. How are we going to deal with the increase in traffic as a result of the increase of 70,000 people?
Well, I think you've hit it. The LRT is a part of the solution. You know, there's not one solution to the issues you're raising in terms of traffic, but it is certainly something that is needed in this community to provide that north-south spine, so that other transit routes can feed into it and move people, particularly between communities within the region. Because as you know, well, we see it every morning, right? How many people are going every which way. So we have a lot of migration, we have a lot going out too. So I think the LRT will certainly help alleviate some of it. But the other things we're looking at is, you know, the whole active transportation piece. And one of the kind of neat things that we've done in this region is the I guess more around the bylaw to provide for e-bikes, so that, you know, that whole different alternative modes of transportation are certainly being looked at. We invest a lot of money in this community in our trail system. As you know, people ride their bikes on the trail system, and I suspect more will do that as our trails continue to interconnect to get people to places. There's certain sectors in our community that ride bikes for sure. Part of the problem there is our climate, because then for the city, you know, we create these bike lanes, but they're very hard to fly. So, and really seasonal for the most part. So that's another area that we're doing. In terms of, you know, for us here in Cambridge, we continue to provide EV stations to help, you know, those that are changing over to electric, to kind of make it more convenient for charging and that sort of thing. But I think, you know, to your point, traffic is getting busier, for sure, and I think, you know, it's going to take a change in habits for people. But I think one of the things we've noticed too is definitely with you know, hybrid work, we're seeing, you know, people are having an impact in terms of their carbon footprint because we're not traveling to work every day. We saw that particularly during the pandemic, when, you know, various air quality readings were way down from it. So the car does have a big impact on that. But so I think the way we work is changing. So there's a lot of things happening right now. But for the development of this community, I think the LRT is really important for us to have. But it also will require, as I said, other linkages into it to create that multimodal opportunity.
You know, I know when you live your whole life in a community, you go up and down the same roads all the time, you know, and see this density coming in, you get really mad. So, what the hell are you people doing into my community? So stay the hell out so that I can get to work on that. That's a part of growth, and once we've built up, you know, that center, and like you said, we don't have a lot of green fields to expand out, we're gonna be going up, not out. As soon as we put a bunch more people down there in those same corridors, it's gonna create, some big problems, from a traffic perspective, and we're just gonna have to get a little more patient about it. Speaking of that, Helen Jowett and I, I don't know, a long time ago when Helen was the chair of the chamber, we went and had a meeting regarding the LRT, this was before construction started, with Mike Murray and Ken Sealing at the time. And we were sitting in Mike's office, and I remember asking the question to Mike, from the whole 18 kilometers of the LRT, what area is gonna have the biggest impact from a redevelopment perspective? And he looked at me very, very quickly and said, Hesper Road, no question. So, given that, we know that the opportunity is gonna be there. Hesper Road's already a 4-lane, basically, 4-lane, nice and wide. Those properties are really underutilized from that perspective because they're all low-rise buildings built on massive pieces of land. We're gonna see a tremendous amount of redevelopment. Are all the planning tools in place to be able to deal with that? Because as we get closer to that day where they say LRT is gonna start construction on, we know that there's gonna be investment coming in there and people looking at opportunities. Do you believe that all the planning tools are there to do a good job and to capitalize on the investment that we can get?
I would argue it's a bit of a work in progress. There's some aspects that are in place now. We're doing some rezoning to create those higher densities on some of those properties to get that influx of people to be able to use and support the LRT, because we need to create those densities in order to support and get funding for the LRT. So we're doing a lot of work on that. The infrastructure is there. We've seen that the LRT routes are already planned out. They've been established. That's where we're definitely one of them down the center. So the infrastructure is there. A lot of the properties there, as you appreciate, are parking lots fronting onto the road. Not very attractive, so we're hoping to see some better urban design for along there to create a nice corridor. Because if you go down, through the center of Waterloo and Kitchener, it's kind of impressive in a way to see some of the growth that's taken off and beside it, the LRT. But you need those densities to support it, and what that does too, to your earlier point about traffic, is one of the things that allows us to do is require less parking for residential units, because the LRT is there. The expectation will be that you won't have 2 cars or 3 cars per family living there, and that the LRT would be supported. So then the development community feels, they can invest more in housing units as opposed to parking. So those are the types of policies we're looking at and seeing how we can be flexible in terms of creating the atmosphere to create that development. But I know we've also done some visioning around streetscaping. Right now it's pretty sterile coming down. That's how to plant trees, what trees would survive, things like that. But trying to add some green space along there as well. So I'm quite confident that we're well positioned to receive the LRT once we get our density numbers up, and once we can get the province to continue the investment, because having to just stop at very small, we were sort of promised to have an LRT, so we need to keep focusing on anything, encouraging support for that.
Well, of course, as you probably can imagine, when Mike Murray said to me at that time, "Oh, Hesper Road," I said, "Then why aren't you starting the main street?"
I didn't get you far, did it?
No. I don't think he actually heard that. Do you think? No, I don't think he heard that. But it'll be no surprise to you to hear that Cambridge is in the same boat as many municipalities, of course, that inflation is taking its toll. There are two indexes that exist. Many people don't really know them. One is the CPI, Consumer Price Index, and one is the MPI, Municipal Price Area Index. Generally, MPI is a lot higher than the CPI. Probably for, you've convinced me over the years, David, that maybe for good reason, because a lot of energy is used from the city of Cambridge's perspective, or municipality perspective, a lot of gas and oil. Collective agreements, but mostly inordinate amount of energy is really the big one, especially at this time. This puts big pressure on municipal budgets, there's no doubt about it. What measures are in place to move the city in a direction is set to use less oil and gas? Do you feel that the city has a good handle on maintaining a reasonable tax level for 2020?
So, just so you understand, CPI and the MPI, the city of Cambridge does not really use MPI, we use CPI. But I will qualify it, we use it, it's just a guide. I think, we as a municipality, we as an administration, and I know our elected officials, take the budgeting process very seriously to find the best value per dollar for the taxpayer. So, we are taxpayers too. So we understand the pressures that a tax increase has on everybody in this room. We understand the pressures it has on those that aren't as privileged as we are in terms of our financial resources. So as we deliberate our budget process, we take all those things into account. We do have the MPI, which is a certain basket of goods. We don't really look at that. We look at what services we provide. We look at what are the triggers causing inflation within the city, because we're experiencing it the same as you are in the business world. We have inflationary increases that are out of our control, but we need to be able to moderate and figure out how to continue to provide services that you expect at a reasonable figure. So it's a balancing act in terms of what we're doing. But as I think I'm saying, is we're pretty attuned to what's going on in the community in terms of what the financial capacity is. That doesn't mean a zero tax increase. Because as you know, Greg, zero is not helpful at all. You'll only have to play catch up at some time in the future. So small, regular increases is where we have to go. We're also experiencing the same sort of problems around supply chain management and the inability to get certain supplies. So we have a broken elevator right now. We can't get the parts for it. We're having to wait months for those sorts of things. So then we get complaints why it's an elevator work. So it's a whole thing that you and others in this room experience too. The other impact we have is through our tendering process. So as you know, we go out and get bids for certain projects. Those bids are coming in way higher than we budgeted for 2 years ago. And that's, some of these capital programs have been on the books for a couple of years. So how do we, deal with that? So, we look at rescoping projects. We look at, other ways to save. So we're very responsible that way. Our carbon footprint, our greenhouse gas emissions, we are a big greenhouse gas emitter through recreation facilities that burn carbon fuels, through our fleet, which we have a very large fleet of vehicles that are out there every day. So we take that seriously too. So we're looking at innovative ways to continue to convert some of our older facilities into more efficient uses in terms of the HVAC systems. In any of our new projects, we used to hear about LEED. We're not doing LEED, but we're very conscientious of trying to find the best and most innovative ways to create new buildings. So we have a recreation center that we're hoping to start next year. We have the Town Street Soccer. We have the Preston Pod. Again, just a plug for council. These are investments council has made in this community to the tune of about $150 million to create better amenities because of our aging infrastructure. So we take that as an opportunity to be able to look at how we can lessen our impact on the environment. But the other one I should say too is we are converting a lot of our fleet to electric. Hopefully that is the way of the future, but as I think you know and I know, perhaps it's hydrogen eventually. So we're always trying to keep on the forefront of trying to provide, you know, a clean environment for the provider services. But it is limited in what we can do sometimes in order to continue to make sure the water gets to your taps and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's as much a cost control situation as it is, let's be greener, let's control some costs, because we have to control those costs as well, and be mindful of the taxpayer. I think it goes back to our resolution that we presented at the Canadian Chamber AGM, of saying, you know, many things, and you know this, many things that we're forced to deal with at a municipal level are not appropriate to be laid on the backs of property taxes. It's just, that's not what property taxes were defined for. Property tax is the most unfair tax there is, because it's on the perceived ability to pay. And so we need to look for better ways of doing things like that, and even within the municipality. And it's certainly under your leadership that is certainly happening. I do have to do these rapid fire questions, and I'll tell you why I have to do these.
I just wanted to say, you said earlier you went to the other fellow for, you know, for fun. I can be fun too.
No, I don't, because oddly enough, when I would go into your office, he would come in shortly after and say, I heard a bunch of laughing going on in here, what's going on? And David would say, well, wait till you read the motion. Right? No, I know you can be fun, David, we've had a lot of fun over the years. It's been a long time, David.
Yeah.
You know, 1990, I was but a child. But anyway, in our last breakfast, we had Brian May and Valerie Bradford, right? And for some reason or another, we hadn't done, you know, much in person. I didn't do my normal rapid fire questions, and I know I've done them with you in the past. And it was really funny because the first time I did them with Brian, I sent out, you know, told him I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about this, this, and this. And I'm going to do some rapid fire questions. And Brian May sent a note back saying, hey, wait a minute, well, what are these rapid fire questions? I said, well, I can't tell you those. And he comes back, oh, I don't know whether I can answer any rapid fire questions. I don't know. He didn't want me to put him in an odd spot, which I love to do. With everybody I interview.
So since I didn't protest.
So the last breakfast, I didn't do them with Valerie and Brian. And Brian comes up to me and says, hey, where was the rapid fire question? I said, oh, like I didn't think you liked them, right? I love them. They were great. So I'm back to rapid fire questions.
You're in the headlights time.
If you were to write a book, what would it be about, David?
Oh, municipal government stories I can tell.
You can't tell any stories about council sitting in your office. You can't do that.
No, there's some in this room.
Would you write a book about municipal government?
Well, funny story is I've actually written a chapter for a book that's coming out next month on municipal government. It's about CAOs and leadership in Canada. And I think I'm one of 14 contributors to the book by two well-known authors, Michael Fenn and David Siegel. So anyway.
Wow, congratulations. I can't even think of 13 other people that would be better than you at speaking.
Oh, there's lots.
Besides me emailing you at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, what surprises you most about your job?
Yeah, just that. Every day is different. Like, you know, I can get up in the morning with great intentions of what I'm going to do today. It changes in a flash, and I can tell you, yeah, something changed this morning even before I got here, because I made the mistake of looking at that little device. Okay, yeah, I got to deal with that right now. But anyway, yeah, it you know, it is the diversity of the position, and I can tell you, you know, no day is boring, and I still have the passion for it too. I think so. That's why I still do it.
Yeah, you know, I laugh about that. Or joke about that, besides me on the 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, that actually had happened recently. And I can tell you, it was a member of mine emailing me saying, what the hell? And so I said, well, the only person I know that could take that message to would be David Calder. And 15 or 20 minutes later, the problem was solved, and we had a really happy business person on Eagle Street.
So on that, so yeah, it looks like I take the glory for it, but the whole team of
Oh,
people
yeah.
behind there that made that happen. One of them sitting over
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
got a shot. He
Yeah.
said, get it done.
Yeah.
Got done. It was a broken pipe, and we figured out how to repair it quickly for a car wash on a very beautiful weekend that was coming up. That he would have been out of business for a number of hours.
Yeah.
He listened and figured a way to accommodate it. And
Yeah.
I think he was pleased about the outcome.
Oh,
But
was
it
he
took some minds to get together to make it happen.
was he ever, like, he was not pleased when he heard what was gonna happen, but certainly pleased 15 minutes later when he
There's a learning there too,
Yeah,
for us on the customer service side of things too.
yeah. Oh, there's always a learning on that, for sure. Again, besides me, which coworker did you learn the most from?
Oh, yeah, a fellow by the name, he's Simon Farbrother, who I learned in the city of Waterloo, and went on to do some great things with the city of, I think, Edmonton. He's now over in Dubai doing some cool work. But I'll tell you, I learned what to do, and I learned what not to do from him. So I felt that was a pretty valuable education, and he probably doesn't even realize. Like
Was
most
it one,
mentors
did
that-
you learn the what not to do by watching him do that?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Very good, I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Learn through somebody else's mistakes. Don't make
What's your favorite season?
whole fall. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
you're a
the
bit of a hiker.
No, but I just like, we have a cottage in Southampton in the fall. I like it best in the fall. The summers it's busy and lots of people around, but fall it's quieter and
Yeah.
and the dogs can run on the beach.
Yes. Night out or night in?
Night in, yeah.
Oh, really boring.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a homer, because I find,
You're out all day,
yeah,
right? You're out
yeah.
doing stuff and meeting with people. I'm
I like
probably the same way. Once I'm done for the day, I'd like to be done for the day, but, interesting. Cannonball into the pool, or do you dip your toe in first?
Oh, cannonball, gotta get it over with. Dipping your toe in just says, no, I'm not gonna do that.
What's your favorite pizza topping?
Pepperoni,
Mm,
pretty boring,
yeah. So kind of a night in guy.
right? Pepperoni, goat cheese.
Oh,
You got it?
oh, yeah. And that is good. I like that. I like the odd cheeses in the pizza too. Okay, what are you most grateful for in the whole world?
Being here with you, Greg. What a way to start a Tuesday. No, I'm grateful. I have a very supportive family in what I do. Yeah.
Awesome. What I'm grateful for is that you took the time to come and sit with us and have a conversation. Meet with some of our members and talk to some people. And David, I think a lot of you, and I certainly think a lot of your capabilities, and I know we should all be grateful that David Calder is our city manager, and so should our council, and hopefully they do, because we think you do a wonderful job, and you're a good leader and ambassador for the city. You don't want to be that face out in front of everybody, but you're the calm, steady man at the wheel, and we certainly appreciate that. So I'm grateful for that. Thanks,
Thank you for that.